This video is going to be a look at the decision-making process and some of the options or factors that are involved and whether or not the Baltimore Ravens decide to pick up Odafe Oweh's fifth-year option. Look, the Ravens draft focus seems pretty obvious. Offensive tackle, wide receiver, and corner, rightfully so from a personnel standpoint and the depth the Ravens are trying to build at those positions. And that is where the strength of this draft lies, those three positions, along with a quarterback as well. Although I do have a slightly different opinion about when and where some of those quarterbacks should be taken starting Thursday night. For about 2 weeks now, us Ravens fans have been focused on tackle, receiver, and corner to the exclusion of almost all others. Because following the re-signing of Kyle Van Noy, we felt like that outside linebacker position, edge defender, was solidified. It's one that we're comfortable moving forward into the 2024 season with the particular guys we already have on the roster. And we do not anticipate the Ravens drafting anyone that's expected or going to be relied upon to make an immediate impact. But should we? Meaning, with 4 or 5 days now before the draft begins, what does the Ravens front office think of that outside linebacker position? Eric DeCosta in a press conference indicated that the edge class for this draft was average. His quote was something like, I think it's an average draft, I would say, for edge rushers. There's some guys at the top, but for us, we've always had success finding guys in the middle rounds, and I think their track record proves that. It seemed like enough honesty there for me to indicate the Ravens are not looking to address outside linebacker or edge in this draft. I think we would all tend to agree with him. The film of this draft class that I've watched, at least, has been underwhelming, except Laiatu Latu. He looks game ready from day one to me. Darius Robinson, big and strong, not nearly as refined or quick and athletic as Latu in terms of his pass rush moves, and not as smooth or reactive. Outside of those two guys, I don't foresee anyone being a day one star. Dallas Turner certainly has a lot of talent as well. Does Eric DeCosta's response have anything to do with the group of guys that are already there for the Ravens? Oweh, Van Noy now, David Ojabo returning from another injury, Tavius Robinson, Malik Harrison there as well as a group of edge defenders that provides a lot of versatility in terms of the relative strength of each guy. So where does Odafe Oweh fit in that hierarchy? Certainly as a starter from a projection standpoint. Do the Ravens plan on picking up his fifth-year option? Does whatever occurs throughout this draft impact that decision, or have they already made it? I believe the latest projections I saw was that it would be between $12.4 and $13.4 million to pick up his fifth-year option. Do you want the Ravens, as a fan, do you want the Ravens to pick up that fifth-year option? From a financial standpoint, I can totally understand fans saying yes. Personally, from what I would like to see, I would love to see Odafe Oweh explode and become the player that we think he can be starting in 2024. If we were to look at the salary structure of outside linebackers, edge defenders, for 2024, that number, I believe, between 12.5 to 13.5 million roughly, would fit in the top 20 in terms of 1 year salary for outside linebackers. Defensive ends, outside linebackers, kind of configured differently in terms of salaries. But look, there's just more accomplished guys on that list in that range. And this is coming from someone who roots for Oweh and has done videos before defending him when other people were not. Let's put it that way. I think the $12 to $13 million salary number, look, there's still guys that are on their rookie deals that's well below that. Trayvon Walker, 10 sacks last year. Kayvon Thibodeau, plus 10 sacks last year. I believe both of them for 2024 are in the 7 to 8 million range. And some of that might be signing bonus. The point is there's a lot more production from guys above, at, and below Oweh's projected salary structure if the Ravens did pick up his fifth-year option. Some of them are top 10 picks, where Oweh was a late first-round selection. Based mostly, we know, on the physical attributes and the pure talent level, certainly not his his stats at Penn State. If you were to look at his output in Baltimore, just from a statistical standpoint, which I try to do more than just that here, obviously, but from a sack standpoint, it's kind of crazy how similar it is through 45 games with the Ravens, 13 sacks. 20 games at Penn State, 7 sacks. Roughly multiply that by 2, you'd have 14 sacks in 40 games. It's obviously a simplistic view that ignores some obvious factors that I'll mention here as we let these pass rush reps, the really good ones, flow through from 2023. Look, he had 5 sacks again last year. It's the second time he's had 5 sacks in his 3 years with the Ravens. Is that the ceiling for his potential? I think no matter what your opinion is, whether or not the Ravens should pick up his 5th-year option or not, there's no way to say that that's his ceiling. Personally, when he's attacking, playing across the line of scrimmage, he can be incredibly disruptive. I think he dealt with injury again in 2023, this time missing 4 weeks in a row. I think week 3 through week 6 on the road in England against the Titans were the games that he missed. I thought he played at an extremely high level and played with a ton of force in the week 1 win over the Texans, even up through the week 11 win over the Bengals. To remind you, at that time, after the week 11 win over Cincinnati, Oweh had 4 sacks and 10 quarterback hits in his 6 games played combined. Thereafter, Jadeveon Clowney and Kyle Van Noy's contributions just outweighed his. They just clearly, it's not like those guys weren't contributing already prior to sweeping the Bengals. But those two, their contributions, what they were able to do on a play-by-play basis, just outshined Oweh the rest of the year. They all 3 were there. It's just that Oweh wasn't able to keep pace and have that consistent impact. And look, he played a lot to finish the season, I mean, against the Chargers, Rams, Jags, 49ers, and Dolphins. You're talking about 35 to 38 snaps a game. It's not like he didn't get opportunities to continue to make plays. I do think his production for those first 6 games played in 2023 is in line with his potential, meaning he could be he's capable of double-digit sacks from an athletic standpoint through those first 6 games, as I mentioned, 4 sacks, 10 quarterback hits. Production just fell off thereafter. We haven't seen it occur for extended period of times, meaning statistical production. Not enough for most of us to justify a $13 million plus extension or fifth year pickup, I guess, when there's other guys out there who have produced so much more for less across the league. And look, the reality is seeing Clowney and Van Noy step right in and get upwards of 9 sacks apiece is then tough to compare to Oweh giving us just 1 sack and 3 quarterback hits in his last 7 games played. And again, you're talking about between 35 to 38 snaps per game. If it sounds like I'm being overly critical of Oweh, forgive me for that. I'm actually rooting for him. I think he has the potential to succeed. In fact, I expect him to improve in 2024, particularly if he plays 16 or 17 games. But to act like he's on the same trajectory as Patrick Queen is somewhat disingenuous. I think he's on a similar trajectory to Madubuike. Madubuike was not limited by injury or availability prior to 2023. It was just opportunity. Snaps were there at times, but not in all pass rush situations. In 2023, when it was 3rd and 8, obvious pass situation, Madubuike was on the field. Oweh was eclipsed by Clowney and Van Noy by the end of the year in a lot of those situations. I have to call it the way it is, not the way that I would like it to be. The reality is Oweh underperformed from a statistical standpoint in his 3rd year. Now, with the given lack of talent, if you accept Eric DaCosta's explanation, and what I agree with it, lack of talent at outside linebacker in this draft, I think the Ravens have the right plan for 2024, meaning Van Noy, Oweh, Ojabo, Robinson, and Harrison. It's a good group. But 2025 would be Ojabo's 4th year in the league, which is kind of unbelievable. That's the year that presumably Oweh may be offered the 5th-year option. Oweh could be gone at that time or retained for $12 to $13 million. The Ravens also have the Bateman decision to make as a 5th-year option, whether to pick it up or not. I think one of those 2 guys is probably picked up and one of them is not. It would not surprise me if the other one is traded during this draft, and I know that might sound a little bit inflammatory. The lack of outside linebacker edge depth in this draft would go against what I just said. I think there's another path, to be honest with you. I think it's low-key smart to bring Van Noy back for 2 years. So there's some measure of stability there with all the other positions of need at O-line, receiver, corner. Outside linebacker has become one that the front office was able to address before the draft. Kind of cleans up the board, if you ask me. Doesn't force us to take an outside linebacker just because he's there. Meaning someone is available at 62 that we didn't think would be, or even 30. We don't have to take him. I personally think there's guys being talked about in this draft at the outside linebacker DN position at a level that I don't think they're ready to contribute, but I could be way off. As it relates to Oweh in this draft, I will say this. I want to point out one thing. With his fifth-year option being in the 12 to 13 million range, as crazy as it sounds, there's other guys for the Ravens to go get who have a similar cap hit this season. And one of them is Matthew Judon. I think the Patriots are in a unique place now with a new head coach, no quarterbacks, and they're at number 3 in this draft. So certainly it looks like they're going to go quarterback like everyone is projecting. I'd be all in on Marvin Harrison Jr. there, but that's just me. I think he's a Hall of Fame talent, but there's certainly other really good wide receivers available in this draft up through the second and third round. Anyway, back to New England. They have pick 3, pick 34, 68, and 103. So you say, well, Coach, if they take Marvin Harrison Jr. at 3, how do they address quarterback? Agreed, totally. Perhaps wanting to get rid of Judon, which there's been some indication that they will be, would it be possible for them to get back in the first round to get a quarterback that survives that long? Now, we're talking about the Ravens at 30. There's 29 other teams, well, a little bit less than 29, picking in front of us. Bo Nix or Penix would be the two possibilities if you don't take a quarterback at 3. I don't necessarily see the Patriots trading back in with the Ravens at 30. We do seem like a good option if you get past 23, meaning pick 23 and one or two of those guys is on the board. No one from 24 on is taking a quarterback, barring a trade that is. In fact, another 6 or 7 picks sooner than that, you've got teams who all have quarterback addressed. Talk about the Dolphins as you wish. Judon to Baltimore might seem a little far-fetched, but let me just mention this. After the Ravens re-signed Van Noy, I have actually wondered if that means the Ravens might be more willing to trade for someone, because when players and picks are a part of the deal on both sides, nothing would surprise me for any team, that for that matter, but specifically the Ravens. This idea popped up actually in our Discord. If you're going to pay Oweh 12 to 13 million in 2025, the 5th-year option, look at Judon's salary. This is not my idea, to be honest with you. I am co-signing it, though, as something that wouldn't surprise me if it does occur. You may think it's crazy, but look at Judon's contract. There is a $14 million hit for this season, 2024. And then 2025, which would be Oweh's 5th-year option, Judon's cap hit, if I'm reading it correctly, is $2 million. Looks far more attractive from just a straight production to cost comparison. Now, the other thing to consider is Judon only played 4 games in 2023. If it sounds like I am trying to sell you that we should trade Oweh, that is not the case. I'm rooting for him to put it together. I would love to see him play 16 or 17 games and get a lot of snaps, meaning plus 40. I think he can if those two things occur. Plays a lot of games, plus 40 snaps per game, especially with Chuck Smith's coaching. I am one of the people, I was most happy to see Chuck Smith retained, brought back as the outside linebacker edge defender coach because of all the coaching talent that left. It provides some continuity, some experience to help Orr as the new defensive coordinator and the entire defensive staff. And Van Noy is probably a pseudo player coach anyway. But in that price range, the one that we're talking about, $12 to $14 million, we would be remiss if we didn't explore finding a player who had more production for the same amount especially given the fact that Ronnie Stanley and Marlon Humphrey's cap hits are so huge in 2024, and that may be a reason for some people to say, well, Coach, I don't think we could handle Judon's salary. Certainly won't argue against that. Stanley's has been reworked, and the Ravens only have, I think, a little over $7 million in cap space right now. Basically, what I'm saying is until the Ravens actually draft at 30, I think anything is possible. And Oweh being drafted as a physical talent who at this point, I have to admit, has underachieved based on what we would like to have seen him provide as a late first-round pick. I won't really have a sense of ease until the Lions have turned in a card at 29, meaning that we're actually going to get the player we want. There's multiple trade back options for the Ravens. And until we do pick at 30, I'll kind of be holding my breath, to be honest with you, on trade options with picks for picks or things that include players like an Oweh, a Bateman, or a Matthew Judon. One option that was mentioned or one possibility in our Discord that I think is interesting is the Raiders, who have picked 13, 44, and 77. Ravens have a number of choices, options really, that work to their advantage. If a quarterback does fall past that 23 selection, presumably the Vikings have taken a quarterback at some point because they have 2 first-round picks. Because we have Van Noy, Oweh, presumably Ojabo is healthy now, that position has been solidified. The Ravens probably want to look at addressing multiple positions in a range of selections, a range of picks. I think Eric DeCosta kind of either gave away his hand or courted trade opportunities with one of the things he said at the Liars Luncheon, which is we would like to have a lot of picks in a certain range. And I think he's probably talking about mid to late second round up through mid fourth round. That's my guess. I could be way off. Seeing how the board turns out in terms of quarterbacks taken, specifically up through the late teens and pick 23 if the Vikings sit where they are, where there'll be no other team looking for a quarterback after 23, I do wonder about the possibility existing that the Ravens either get trade offers from teams looking for a quarterback or looking to offload some salary like a Matthew Judon or others. You guys let me know how you think Oweh's fifth-year option, and Bateman's for that matter, fits into that equation when the Ravens do go to pick at 30, the offers that they'll probably get if there is one quarterback on the board. There certainly may not be. I don't think I would evaluate or judge this draft as 6 quarterbacks should go in the top 16 picks. Just don't see those guys being the top 6 players in that range. I see 6 quarterbacks in the top 34, 35 legitimately. But that's not the way it works at this point, and the Ravens might be able to benefit from it given their unique situation. I'm certainly a fan of Oweh and would love to see him finish out his contract here, be offered a 5th-year option if we could get consistent production from him, consistent availability that really applies to him and Rashad Bateman. Let me know what you think of the video, the film that I did choose to show to kind of illustrate Oweh's play from 2023, which I thought was really good for his first 6 games and then kind of fell off for whatever reason after that home win against the Bengals. Appreciate you guys' time. If you think other Ravens fans would enjoy this video, this look at Odafe Oweh's play and projecting forward what the Ravens' options are with him, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach.